right, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to talk about with resume and cover letters is I'm going to briefly go over cover letters really quickly. And a lot of times the cover letter has been written very basically about yourself, like why you're interested in the position, how may it benefit you. While we often suggest the cover letter really is all about the employer, why you're interested in them, what you have to offer them. So it's really important that you do some research and look at the company culture and see and think about how, if you got hired by them, what would you be doing for them? So yes, I got some good questions. I'm gonna hang on to them for a little bit, but I will address them as I go along. So yes, the cover letter, make sure that you addressed why you're interested in the company. Again, that's why cover letters are very distinctly unique to who you're applying to. Normally you don't need a cover letter, let's say when you go to a career fair or you're networking, because the cover letter is really to introduce yourself and why you're interested in working for a given company. So if you're at a career fair, you're kind of doing that in person, which is why it's important when you apply online, where you really don't get to meet people, that your cover letter really addresses what you might have said at a career fair or a networking event, which really is about, you know, what you're interested in and how that may benefit the employer. Okay. So one quick tip I want to give, a good way to really write a good cover letter is not only to visit their website, but kind of generally speaking, look at the job description, because the company might have a certain culture, but the job description might tell you more about a given department. For example, Google has many departments. So the goal and priorities, say for the Google Maps department versus their, self-driving vehicles might be very different. So even within a given company, each department may differ. So it's really important that you look into not only the company, but the department in which you're working for, what their goals are, and how you would be part of that team and benefit the organization and that given team. So now onto the resume. So one-page resume is definitely what we suggest. And so there's a question in the Q&A that says, you know, can I go over one page, and if they had to include references. So the thing with references is it really isn't on your resume. It should have its own separate page. So your references would be an alternative page, and it could be a second page attached to your resume. If, for example, you're applying to an online web portal and it only allows you to upload one document, what you would do is in the Word document, you would have your resume, and then on the second page, it's very distinctly clear, this is a references page, you would put your references on there. So you definitely want to keep your resume at one page, and your references technically is a totally different thing, and you shouldn't take up all the space on your resume to put references on there. So, and we don't suggest you putting references upon requests, because that's kind of an obvious statement. You know, obviously if we wanted references, we would request that. So you don't need to put that on there. So if you have references and you want to submit them, because they've indicated that they wanted that, but usually I say hold off on references unless specifically requested to do so, because when you hold off on providing references, it's a nice thing to know if they're asking for the reference. Whatever stage you're at in the recruiting process, if they start asking you about references, it's a good sign that it's very positive. So I hold back on providing references unless very distinctly specified when I apply online that it asks me for references. If it doesn't ask me, I hold it and hope for them to ask me later, which would then identify why that the process is going well for me, so that I know that I'm doing well. Okay. So things that you definitely want to include in a resume is your contact information, your skills, experience, projects, etc. I think some of this stuff seems obvious, but you would be surprised at how many times I've seen a resume that doesn't update this information. It's not that you don't have this information, it's just that it's not updated. So I've gotten actually employer requests before where they say, I want to reach out to the student, but the phone number or the email I'm calling isn't working. So make sure that you update and check this information. Okay. And it's really important to highlight, to highlight skills, strong action verbs, and include a purpose and results in all the things that you say. So an example of this is, instead of just saying, I know how to write this type of code, or I can do this type of work. But why are you doing that work? What's the purpose or the results of the work that you do? Everything that you do has a reason. So it can't just because, well, it's, sometimes I get feedback from students saying, well, I wrote that code because it's necessary. Well, why is it necessary? What's it? Well, it's the foundation. Okay, well, then put that, right? So you created this type of code to create the foundation of the platform. So, or whatever, again, the purpose is. And I even get the request for students, well, like the purpose is my teacher assigned me this project. And it's not about why you're doing the project, it's the specific actions that you're doing. Why are you choosing those specific actions? Why did you do it this way? It's really important so the employer kind of identifies what you're doing, because you have to keep in mind that everyone who reads your resume may not actually have a technical background. It actually might go through a recruiter first. And so we wanted to make it simple, where we get some technical knowledge while also being very clear with someone who may not be exactly sure of the technical knowledge that you're talking about. And sometimes even a technical person, if they haven't used that given platform, they wouldn't even know what that is either. So if I was a hiring manager and in the past, I've been hiring this type of student, and you have a completely new set of skills, right? Because you're learning innovative skills in your classes. And so I might not even be familiar with it. So as you learn things like artificial intelligence and data science and machine learning, some of them are more complex, and not everyone has heard about them or seen them or utilized them in their work. So it's important that you're very clear of what you're doing, so that I don't have to guess what that, you just saying you know how to do this, what that's for, what is its purpose, and how is it helpful. So to jump back to cover letters really quickly, a lot of times, again, students repeat what's on a cover letter when really it's designed to accompany, again, your introduction. And it really should not repeat what's already been said on your resume. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. Oftentimes I see the same information I would see on a cover letter and a resume. Again, think of a more narrative approach, except the focus is on the organization. You can have bullet points, but they need to be very, again, related to, like, here are the 3 key responsibilities that you think will directly impact X, Y, or Z. But the purpose and the point of the cover letter is, again, what you have to offer, not exactly just that you meet the responsibilities. So I don't want you to get in the habit of thinking, well, it says on here that these are the responsibilities I have, or these are the requirements, so I'm trying to cover it in the cover letter because I couldn't do it in a resume. And that's not the point. The point is, why did you pick this company in this position? And I know for some of you, it's like, well, I just want an internship, but you can get an internship or a full-time job anywhere. Why did you pick this particular company and this particular department with these particular skill sets, right? You could do, again, you could be a software engineer doing anything. You could work for LinkedIn, you can work for Uber, you can work for, Amazon, and they all have a different purpose. So if you don't differentiate yourself, that's how we separate a good candidate who wants a career and wants to grow with our organization versus someone who wants a job. And employers, especially in the tech world, they don't want turnover. So the more you really are invested in the company, the more likely that you're going to stay longer. And that's why they're going to be really interested in you, because again, they don't want to rehire and have high turnover. I did have a question here about addressing cover letters where the companies accept generalists and like team matching afterwards. It's a great question. When you're writing a cover letter, think about what's priority to you. I know for some of you, you're thinking, well, I'll take anything at this company, but employers don't really like that, and it doesn't help us, right? So if you could do anything, and I see this is kind of what will happen to you if you give like a general resume and cover letter, is I'll get the general sense of what you can offer. And instead of giving you what you want because you didn't indicate it, I'm going to put you in the department where no one else, I can't fill the positions in, which no one wants to go into the ones, right, that isn't right for you. So if you don't focus in one area or two areas, then, right, for me, if I see, like, for example, I've got two candidates. One candidate says there's these two areas that they're really interested in and have experience in and like to be in, and then they indicated all the other skills that's on their resume. I'm actually likely to, even if I couldn't fill you in those two and I see your other skills on your resume, I still might put you in the other positions. Just because you talked about two other departments doesn't mean I automatically will disqualify you for other departments and other sections. So it's best for you so that you get placed in the department you prefer and do the work that you want to by indicating that one or two areas that you're interested in. And then on your resume, to make sure you have all the skills that has been identified in the job application when they are kind of, in different departments and different skill sets, just indicate again, but make sure you still focus heavily on the areas that you're best at. Because I will tell you this, there's always going to be certain departments that have, less popular, I would say. And so when we have to fill those positions, we'll fill it with anybody who we think we're of quality, even if their resume didn't say, I really want to be in this department, because that's just going to happen. There are just more popular positions than others. An example would be that like general software engineering positions are going to be vastly more available, particularly front end is going to be more available than data science, right? So if you're really interested in data science and you don't indicate that, then I'm going to give it to one of the students who indicated that they want in data science very in-depthly. That's really how this works. So if I see 10 resumes and one of them has been in depth with their interest in data science and everybody was general, my assumption is I'm going to stick that student in the data science one because they've indicated how much their interest area is that and all the qualifications that meet that data science position. A quick question here about templates. Where you can find a good template. I don't recommend templates because a lot of times they're written in a way that's very difficult for screen readers. So I know this is a daunting task where you kind of want to use a template to make this easy for you, but my suggestion is actually to eliminate all templates and tables. If you're using tables in a resume, if you apply online and it goes through a screen reader that can't read through templates and tables, then what happens is the computer reads it as blank and then you get nothing and you don't move forward. Okay. Next slide. So just a very quick separation of the resume and cover letter. So your resume is brief to the point. Think of it as a highlights most relevant to that position. It is not an autobiography, so don't provide everything. I know that you've done a lot, and to be honest, even in one single project or one position that you've been in, the work that you've done there would completely fill more than 2 pages of a resume. So the point of the resume really isn't to be like, let me provide you a little bit of everything. It's actually to focus in certain areas that's been indicated in the job description. So if you got a job description that has indicated that they're looking for Python skills and that they're going to be working on autonomous vehicles, then the employer is looking for those 2 distinct skills. So if you have a little bit of everything and you only have mentioned, 1 or 2 points of that compared to someone else who has had multiple bullet points and multiple sections on the same thing or the same skill set or similar experience, then I'm going to assume that the person who's indicated more Python experience in multiple area actually has more Python experience. even if the both of you had the same, how many times you put it on the resume, how well you identify and clarify how you put it on there and what you did in Python is actually gonna make you seem like a more highly qualified candidate, okay? So we wanna make sure it's objective, it's not in the first person, and yeah, so we wanna keep it professional too. I know sometimes we wanna fill things with like other things that we've done, and it's great to have some extracurriculars or some, you know, campus involvement, but we want to keep that at a minimum. And we really want to think about each position or project that we worked on, and you can put multiple things on there that you wouldn't normally think. So I'll give you an example, is if you presented a presentation that seems like, oh, that's the only thing I can put, right? I presented this presentation. Well, you know, you can talk about the development of the content. You can actually talk about the presentation style. You can talk about if you did an assessment, right? So if I was, again, talking about a presentation I did at the last project, but I'm going into a data analytics position, instead of the presentation itself that I'm talking about that I presented, I'll talk about the data in which either I collected to do the presentation, or I collected data on the presentation itself, on the people who watched the presentation, because I did a survey, and I can give you the results of that survey, right? Because I'm applying to a data analytics position. That is the actual most relevant part. So even though it's presenting a presentation, you can talk about various aspects of any kind of project you've done. And so this would include communication, collaboration, leadership, and then of course the creative technical skills that go along with it. And even time management, right? So if you were responsible for this presentation that included 13 people and 4 different departments, then you can talk about how you managed and cultivated a collaboration amongst these 4 teams to get this presentation going. So again, something as simple as a presentation could be viewed in various lenses and skills. Oops, sorry. Whereas the cover letter is more of a narrative expanding on key areas. It is subjective, it is first person. It is a personal connection. So there's something to a cover letter where if I read your cover letter and I get a sense of who you are, then I'm more interested in hiring you, right? If I get a feel like, oh, I'd like to have you as someone I would like to work with, right? Because many of these positions are full-time in the summer. I have to spend a lot of time with you. So if I like you and I feel like I understand who you are and the types of projects and the interests that you have, and I like that, then I'm more likely to hire you. That's why it's important in the cover letter to address those types of things. This question gets always asked, are cover letters necessary? So here's the thing. Cover letters is often used as a recruiting trick, meaning I'll not put it on there. And some employers have gotten really tired of reading bad cover letters, so they stopped making that request. But you should send them if you're going to send a quality cover letter, okay? Now, if you don't send one, your chances does decrease, especially if you really want to think about the psychological process. If I'm an employer and I put on a job posting that I only require a resume, and I get 800 submissions, right? And only 25 of them submitted a cover letter without being asked. Guess which ones I'm gonna read first? The 25 cover letters, the 25 applicants who submitted a cover letter without being asked, because they went above and beyond what's requested. And that's already a first sign of, you didn't require me to do this, but I'm gonna go above and beyond and do more. And that's a sign of who you might be as an employee, right? Your responsibilities may be X, but if you're willing to do X, Y, and Z, that's a great employee, right? Someone who doesn't say, well, that's not part of my job description. I'm flexible, I'm willing to learn, I'm gonna do the extra work. So our suggestion is always to write a cover letter. Now, there are some small exceptions to the rule. If you are applying to a position where they don't ask for a cover letter and you notice that when you're applying, they've asked a series of questions, like, tell me about this, and there's so many questions. The reason why that's happening is because they've read too many bad cover letters. And so instead of having a generic cover letters being sent to them, what they do now is to be more in-depth and ask you questions. In those circumstances, then I would not submit a cover letter, or if they explicitly say, do not send a cover letter. If it does not explicitly say that, and it does not have a detailed questionnaire application process, then I would send a cover letter. And honestly, even if there was a detailed application process, I still send cover letters. The first job I ever gotten full-time after graduate school did not require a cover letter, and it had all these questions, but I submitted one anyways, and it worked out great for me. So again, I'm not saying that that is the definitive of why I got hired, but it's that extra step that I took because it was important to me and I was willing to do it. So here's some data to support what I said earlier, right? A career builder survey reports that 40% of employers are more likely to pay attention when a cover letter is included with an application compared to those that do not. So it's just more attractive, again, to see that there's extra effort put into something that's not required. And there's actually a small percentage of people who actually wouldn't hire you at all if you did not submit a cover letter. So again, I think part of it too, and why some of these are more, some employers are this particular, is also because of the written communication skills, right? So in a cover letter, I can actually read your ability to communicate effectively on a long document. And so to me, it's a sign of that you know how to write well and communicate effectively what you have to offer. And that's always a positive sign to an employer. So the anatomy of a cover letter. So I'm not going to go too in depth with this, but definitely want to make sure that in a cover letter that you have your contact information that matches the heading that's from the resume. So it shouldn't be two different ones. And some people will be like, well, I used a different font or a different, is that okay? Again, I need it to be identical. So it's like letterhead. It's like if it was printed on letterhead. And the reason why it's important that it matches is when employers are going through digital documents or even physical documents, when the heading matches, then I know to put those two pieces of paper together or keep that information together. And if things get lost, having the headings identical, make sure that those two documents stay together. An introduction, how you found out about the position is really important. And addressing the letter, please make sure you research the company. If you don't do this, you can't possibly write a good cover letter. Okay. And then in your first paragraph, make sure that your main experience that you're proficient in is indicated in addition to why you want to work there. So think of it this way. It's almost like writing an essay. You almost want to have a thesis. Like the reason why I'm applying is X, and your whole cover letter should address that one point, instead of trying to address every single requirement identified in the job description. Because again, I just want to get a sense of who you are. And I'd rather have one thing thoroughly explained than 10 things barely explained and I am confused, okay? Or I have too many questions. And then your second paragraph will include additional skills, different experiences, different roles, again, but to support your thesis, right? Oops. And then in closing, make sure you mention why you think the combination of the culture fit, you know, what you have to offer is kind of the right fit for the organization. So it's not that you're the best candidate, you're the best fit candidate, right? This employer is looking for certain skill sets and a type of employee. What you're basically saying is, I would agree with that. I have the same philosophy. I have the skills that you're looking for. And I really believe that the work that you're doing is important to me. And so, you know, your work and my work and the what we believe together is the same, and that's why we're a good fit. Please make sure you tailor the resume. Like, I still have students really reluctant on making tailored resumes. I know, probably because it's a lot of effort to write a specific resume for each job that you apply to, but I will tell you it's effective. It's just more effective. It's quality versus quantity. I would rather you apply to only 40 positions that you really put the time and effort and done the research, because I promise you, many of you are applying to positions you shouldn't waste your time with, okay? And you're thinking, well, but I'm gonna take anything. But with that mentality, those companies won't pick you anyways. The employer wants someone who wants them, right? So it's kind of like dating, right? Who wants someone to only date them because they couldn't find someone else? No one likes to feel that way, and employers are the same, Okay. So they don't want to feel like the only reason you want to get hired by them is they're your backup plan. They don't like feeling that way. So they're not going to be interested anyways, because they can tell from your generic documents that you don't care about them very much to put any effort. So therefore, even the small time you wasted, you could have just saved up a bunch of those and put the effort on the 40 resume and cover letters out there as opposed to sending 400. And I've seen students send 400. And there's a reason why 400 doesn't work. It's because they put very little effort into each 400, when if they spent the same amount of time and doing those 400 resumes on 40 that they really did the research on and put the effort in, I think they would have had a better chance. I have a quick question here about filling out a resume if you have little or not as much relevant experience. So if you don't have as much experience, again, this goes back to like what I was saying earlier about like looking at each project with different lenses and pulling out different skill sets. So whatever you do, I know many engineers focus on the technical skill, but there's so much more, right? So it would be focusing not on just the technical skill. It would be your collaboration skills, your teamwork skills, or time management, leadership, communication. All of that goes involved in everything that you do. So if you don't have as many technical skills, then fill it with some of the non-technical skills to get the technical work done, right? But I'll put it to you this way. You could be the smartest genius in the world and you know how to do everything, but if you don't communicate effectively or work well in a team, you're not very effective to me. Versus if you have not the strongest set of technical skills, but you learn easy, you're willing to work with people, and you communicate effectively, actually you're the better employee, because I can get you the training to become better technically. I can't train someone who's smart but unwilling to work with other people. That's not a trainable skill. I can't make people more friendly and open-minded. I just can't make a person who's not open-minded to convert to be a more open-minded person. Or at least, even if I could, I just don't have that time and effort to do it in a summer internship. So my time and effort needs to be put on making sure everybody works together and projects get done, not trying to fix this one person who's unflexible. And tailoring your resume really is about looking at each position thoroughly and finding themes and keywords on the job description and making sure that they're covered in the resume. So how this would happen: matching the title exactly, making sure you have a hard skills, and then of course the preferred skills if you have any. Cut irrelevant information. I know that you might value certain aspects of your previous experience really well, and it's important to you, but I hate to say it, if it's not important to the employer, then it doesn't go here, right? So you might feel that you did a project that you were very accomplished, but it has nothing to do with the job that you're applying to. As accomplished as that is, don't put it on the resume, not because it's not a good accomplishment. It's taking up space to attract the person, which the resume is supposed to psychologically attract their needs, okay? So that great accomplishment you can talk about during the interview, but you just don't have space for it in the resume, because how a person reads a resume is really, there's one approach. Like, I mean, there's multiple approaches, but the overall approach is they have key skills or information that they're trying to identify in a resume. So like when I read a resume, I have, for example, when I'm hiring a graphic design student assistant, I want them, because the work that I used to do, we would always use InDesign and we didn't use a lot of Photoshop and Illustrator. So I was looking for anybody who mentioned InDesign and Illustrator. So literally that's how I scanned resumes. I would scan a resume going, where's the Illustrator experience? Oh, here it is. Oh, they made flyers with Illustrator. They made, X, Y, or Z with InDesign. They made cover photos here, and they actually did photography, which is extra. But what I was looking for, again, was Illustrator. And if I don't see Illustrator and InDesign, you're not qualified. It doesn't matter if you have 7 years of Photoshop experience, because I won't be using Photoshop. I'm using Illustrator. So again, if you don't meet that criteria, I'm less likely to be interested. So make sure that you cut out irrelevant information and then get a second opinion. Like even everything I say to you, all of it will mean nothing if a given employer and a given company does it a different way. So I always say what we say to you is generally pretty accurate. But if you are, let's say you have a friend who works at Facebook and they told you, hey, at Facebook, we liked X, Y, or Z, and it goes against what I say, you listen to that person because that's unique specifically to Facebook. What I'm providing you is an overall general, like based on all the employers we talk to, the consensus is most likely a lot of the information we're providing you, but not every employer would agree with everything we have to say. They will have variances. So if you hear from an insider that they prefer one thing versus the other, then you should listen to them for that. You can also use VMOC to scan your resume for like general recommendations. And then the other one I really like is JobScan, because JobScan is basically an ATS software. Remember earlier I talked about like a screen reader software when you submit resumes. So basically you're throwing your resume in JobScan. It's kind of a replication of that similar system that other employers might use. And you can actually enter the job description you're applying to, and it will tell you and give you a score of how well you matched your resume with that job description. Now, there's a cost associated if you want multiple, but you can get 5 free scans a month. And I had a colleague say, just create multiple accounts and then you'll have more. So there's that kind of tip. But I really like JobScan because I think it will help you see what a computer sees, because you can't argue with a computer, right? The system is going to see what it sees. So whatever results you get from JobScan, you can probably assume that if you apply to another company using similar software, you're going to get the same results. Oops. So this is what the score might look like if you upload to VMOC, and it gives you some feedback. So a lot of times students will get a poor feedback on VMOC and they go, I don't know why. Well, you need to click on the sections, and they actually, when you click on them, they'll tell you what areas to fix. And so as you can see on this scale here, green is good, orange is on track, and then red needs work. So if you're using VMOC and you see a lot of red, click on that. It will tell you why you're getting a red score versus a green score. And hopefully your score is 80% or higher. So if you have a VMOC score of 80% or higher, you're in good shape. But again, this is just like a starting point. It's not comprehensive. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed a position if you're over 80%, because in the end, it's about the customization and the tailoring. I had a question, what do you mean by job title? So the job title that's actually you're applying to the posting, because I've seen students get a little lazy and they just put like your internship. You need to put the full position, because if you just put internship and I'm filling 13 different kinds of internship, I have no idea which one you're applying to. So maybe make sure that you match the exact job title and copy and paste over in your cover letter when you submit that. I had a comment on here that says you joined the chat late. Know that this session is being recorded and you can actually rewatch this so you can get all the feedback. You don't put the job title in the resume, you put it in your the cover letter. So that's more specific, like the reason why I'm applying to this. So instead of saying the reason why I'm applying to this internship, it should be the reason why I'm applying to the summer data analyst position at Amazon. So that's what we mean by that. With VMOC, there are limited scans of 10 per academic year. But if you go over, you need to call the main career center and they'll give you access to more. However, make sure that you don't just make one edit each time and then check your score. This is what happens usually when students run out, is they get a little trigger happy and they make 3 edits and then check it and then find it's still not good enough and then make 3 more edits. Just do all the edits to save yourself the time so you don't have to call the main career center and wait to get more access to VMOC. Just be patient, enter all the feedback that you possibly can, and then resubmit. This recording is recorded. Do I need to add it, my experience about associations of apply for a tech position? So the thing with the associations is it depends on the position you're applying to, right? So you really have to think about that whatever you're putting on your resume is really hot commodity space, meaning there's very little that you can put there. So it's either an attention grabbing information or it doesn't belong here. So it's like, think of just again, you in person, your experiences, if you think about the last even year of your experience, to try to put everything that's on there, that's a lot. I just want to know your top, and that's what a resume is, right? So just give me the most important information that's relevant to this position. If you feel that your associations will really help you stand out above other things, then put it on there. Or if you're a newer candidate or have less relevant experience, then the associations are basically saying, I'm more entry level, but here are the things that I'm already involved with that I'm also doing, especially if you're going to, let's say, a conference and you actually presented, that still would be really good. I have a question that says that should we use USC email or personal email? My opinion is when you're applying to jobs specifically on Viterbi Career Gateway, my suggestion is to use the USC one because there actually are employers who are specifically targeting USC students. And although it says your degree on there, it's just that little extra bit. You can use your personal email, but I wouldn't use a personal email unless it's a very simple one, like your first name, last name, and then whatever account it is, or initials, right? So my name is Patty Dang. So my good email accounts for me would be pattydang@gmail.com, patty.dang@gmail.com, pdang@gmail.com, or pattyd@gmail.com. So if it's not anything like that, then I would use the USC one. I had a question about like what time frames do you include your experience from your previous internships, projects 2 years ago? What is again is important more to me is relevancy. So for example, if you are in your master's program right now and you had an internship in your bachelor's degree and it was 2 years ago, however, all the things in the new position you're applying to actually relate to that 2-year-old thing, then I would put it back in. If it doesn't, then that's when I don't put it in. So what's, again, the most important thing is relevancy. Is the experience, whether it's 2 years, 6 months, or 5 years ago, is it related to the position you're applying to? Okay. So here's the job scan version, just so you can see. Same thing, 80% higher. And as again, look, it will give you results in the job scan, and it will tell you where you did right and where you have some mistakes and tips to fix. So again, more detail on how JobScan can help you, and even actually find soft findings. So like, you know, using certain words like collaborating, or even just the keyword, because someone might say team and then another might say collaborate. So it's like matching key terms. So just a quick review. Cover letters, build your basic cover letter, then tailor it to each position based on the company that you're applying to. Use your personal connections and specific examples. Don't repeat what's on your resume. And then for your resume, always tailor. You can build a master resume that has everything and then take piece by piece only what's relevant. That is, I think, the best way. That's kind of how I have my resume. And the reason why I like master resumes is what happens is sometimes I'll put a skill that's on there that I actually haven't used in a while, but then I might get another job 3 years later. And then because it's on a master resume, I didn't delete it and I kept it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I did that 3 years ago. Now I can put it back on my resume. So again, because it's about relevancy, just because I haven't done it for 2 years doesn't mean that it might not work out for me. Like I used to run an internship program, and although I don't currently run an internship program, in the future, if I apply to a job that mentions that it, experience running internship programs, I'm going to throw that back on my resume because it wasn't really there in this last position because it really wasn't about that. So having a master resume, I get to keep all the things that I've written in the past that was relevant at that time, but became less relevant, but they can come back into relevancy later. And then that's it for presentation. So now I'm going to leave it up to answering more questions, and then ways to connect with us. Make sure you know that actually this drop-in is incorrect. It's actually from 2 to 7, Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays from 2 to 5. I apologize for that error. I'm going to update this slide. So I'm going to go back now to the questions from the very beginning to see if I missed anything. Besides ConnectSC and LinkedIn, which website should I look out for internships and job opportunities? Go straight to company websites. Especially now during COVID-19, there's going to be companies that are going to cut costs and cut effort because they may potentially have cut people. So if they're downsizing their human resources, they may not have a human resources person that is going to post a job on ConnectSC and at UCLA and at all different kinds of schools. So they might get lazy and only post on their own website. So my suggestion is the best websites is go straight to the employer's websites. You don't know how many times a student has told me, hey, I saw this position, but it's not posted on Gateway, but I found it on their website. Well, then that's great. You're more likely to see employers post more postings on their own website compared to other places because they might only submit certain job postings to Viterbi because they're targeting these because they're looking for Viterbi students for these. But they weren't thinking particularly for Viterbi students for other things, so they have it just on their website. So I would say outside of LinkedIn, ConnectSC, Viterbi Career Gateway, go straight to the employer's company career page. I have experience of 4 years in tech consulting. I'm now looking for full-time opportunity in software engineer and machine learning. I feel include this experience even after I put in effort to make it relevant is hurting my chances of getting calls. Would you suggest keeping it or removing it? What I would suggest is diminishing it, not removing it. So instead of focusing heavily a lot on all the other things, it's to include them, but give them a small amount of space so that they're there, but that they don't consume a lot of space, so that your focus area could be in the machine learning part, and anything relevant that you would find that's, you know, that could be included that's related as closely as it can to machine learning, and then to add some of the other previous experience. But again, it should get 1 or 2 bullet points. It really shouldn't get more than that, right? So the majority of your bullet points should be in the areas of software engineering and machine learning. Tips for resumes for looking for internships when we already have when we have only 1 semester of experience worth of content relevant to the job. I think I addressed that, but just to keep it again, having 1 internship experience or 1 semester is plenty for another internship. So I think a lot of times students overly worry that they're comparing themselves to this fictional superior other student who has 10 times more experience than you, trying to get the same internship as you. That's not really happening. Someone with that much more skill wants a different position. They want a higher level position. I mean, if you think about it, you yourself, right? If you're now on your 3rd internship, you don't want to be doing the same type of entry level work that you did when you kind of first started. You want to do more higher level or different or specialized work. So you're really not like, you know, comparing yourself to the right people, because if you are only have 1 semester of experience on your belt, you're not really competing with other people who have multiple internship experience. You're competing with other people with 1, and maybe actually there's many students, especially if they're a master's student, they may not even have 1. Some students go straight from bachelor's to graduate school and may not even have an internship experience. So, and there are plenty of master students with no prior internship experience. In their 1st semester, they do get job offers in the summer for their 1st internship. So if that's possible, your 1 internship experience is plenty to get another internship experience. Now, if you're talking about a full-time job offer, yes, 1 internship experience isn't the best, but I will tell you again, There are people who have no internship experience, just project experience from school because they made the projects relevant to the work that they would be doing. And they still get full-time job offers with a master's degree right out of school. So again, it's really about how can you articulate the knowledge you have. It's not how you obtained it. An internship isn't the end all be all. Like if you have it, it's like a guarantee. No, because there are students who attend and participate in internship and then don't take advantage of the internship and don't learn a lot and don't garner the skills that they need. So it's think more about what knowledge do you have to offer, the skill you have to offer. I don't care how you learn Python. If you are an excellent at that skill set and I'm looking for someone with that skill set, where you learned it, whether it's your grandma's basement in an internship or in class, is really irrelevant to me. If you have high skill, you have high skill. That's really what it comes down to. Engineering is not like a philosophical degree, it's a practical application degree. So you've done plenty of practical application and projects work that you've done in school. And even if you do only your personal projects, they still count, right? So I want you to think about it. If you're an employer and as a student, you and your friends built an app by yourself with no supervision, then I know you know how to build an app. It's really simple as that. So it doesn't matter that no one paid you or whether it was associated with a course or what was during an internship. What matters is you know how to build that app. And if I'm looking for that skill set, then that's what matters. I think I addressed most of the earlier questions. So you wanted an email address to share further questions. So I am going to put in, you can actually email me if you have questions, but if it's usually about resume, I would suggest coming to drop-in. So if you want to send me a message, my response will either answer it or I'll probably say, hey, come to drop-in or make an appointment. Drop-in appointments include individual resume reviews. Yes, they're 15 minutes long, so they're quick. My suggestion is to bring a job description so we could just very quickly just see if your resume matches with the job description. General resumes, again, well, first of all, we don't suggest them, so we try to avoid even giving you that. And honestly, if I was doing a drop-in appointment and you gave me a resume and you gave me general resume, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to give you basic edits and then say, come back with the job description and tailor it to that. So if you want to save time, I would just jump to that. If I mention technical skills like Solid or C++ in the skills section, would it be redundant to list the classes I learned them in relevant coursework? I think what's not redundant is how you know how to use SolidWorks in C++. By just putting C++, I have no idea what it means. You know, someone who uses C++ by you and someone else could be totally different. So if you're going to put anything at all that's repeated, then it would be the demonstration of that skills, how you use it. By using C++, you did what and why was that helpful or beneficial? So if you, instead of just putting it as a list of classes, I would like to see it in your projects, right? So for example, even if you don't have a full project that you did and it was just a homework assignment, then you could list it under coursework. And instead of telling me what the course is about, I'd rather just hear the skills that you've learned, obtained, or practiced that's relevant to the position. So if you did certain things with C++ in a certain class that you now know how to do that you didn't before, I would put that on there. So it's not redundant. What is redundant is just putting C++ multiple times, but never identifying what you actually did, right? Because I really don't know what that means unless you're more specific. For college freshmen who are applying in the coming months and do not have much accomplishments from fall college semester, who do you recommend we provide as references? High school teachers and mentors, okay? I would recommend, yes, teachers, preferably from here. Again, because you're at USC now, you don't need to have the most in-depth relationship with a faculty member here. If you really don't have them before, then yes, faculty, and you know, and I would even say, even if you held like a part-time job at, you know, a retail job or even volunteer work like you did in the summer, and you only worked a month somewhere, the person supervising you there, what the thing you have to understand about recommendations is someone who can speak on your behalf, who has oversaw you do work and follow directions, and can basically say that you show up to work on time, that you work well with others, that you complete tasks, that you follow instructions, and that you do the work that you're supposed to do. Anyone who can speak on that behalf, then that would be the great person. I wouldn't suggest just anyone who thinks you're great, because if they can't really explain why you're great other than personality skills, it's, again, what we want to hear is someone that says, yeah, you know, they worked on this project with me. Again, it could be volunteer, it could be anything, and just say, you know, and this is how they went above and beyond. This is what they did. This is how they were dedicated. This is how they showed up every single day, even though they volunteered, didn't get paid, or it was a retail job. And yes, it was, you know, food service or retail, but you know, this person dealt with some really difficult customers, and they handle it with such professionalism and grace that they would work well under pressure at your company. So anyone who can speak on your behalf that can do any of that is going to be an excellent reference. So with applying your relevancy rule with previous experience, does that mean that we could use experience from high school? A lot of people have said that after fall freshman year, that experience is no longer relevant. You know, it depends, right? So if this is your freshman year and you're talking about a high school position or things that you did in your senior year, then it's very relevant. Now, where I struggle is with when it's your senior year as a college student and you're still pulling things from high school. So I think as a freshman, pulling things from high school is not out of the question. We just want to make sure that it's not the highlight of everything. But again, here again, here comes back to that thing. If you're applying to a job that wants the skill and you did exactly that and was in a leadership role in your high school, then yeah, I don't care. I would rather see that than nothing at all. I wanted to ask if I had a solid one-page resume, but I want to include references that will make 2 pages, should I think we addressed that. Does it make a negative impression if the projects put on the resume are not good enough? Well, here's the thing about good enough. I think we criticize ourselves a little heavy, again, because it's out of nervousness and fear that we're not good enough, right? We make up a mythical, and I've met so many students, and I will say there really hasn't been a student that I met that's like, I'm confident, I'm gonna get any job that I want. And so my wonderment is all of you, most of you are gonna get internships and full-time jobs. So every one of you have said there's someone better than you. So then I would like to know who this fictional, wonderful person who has all these skills are, because if none of you say you're that person, then who are you comparing yourself to, right? So don't let yourself decide if your project is good enough. Let the employer decide if the project is good enough. So this is not about bragging on your resume. It's about facts. This is what you did. Let the employer know. When I was on this project, I was responsible for this. And because of what I did, here was the outcome, and let them decide if that's good enough. Let's not self-decide in advance what we think is good enough. As long as it's relevant to the position, then it's up to the employer to look at it and say, that is enough or not enough. Don't pre-decide for yourself. Now, it would be different if you had too many to choose from of that skill set, then you can be picky. But if it's like, if you don't have anything else but this and you don't think it's that wonderful and you just think it's novice, remember, you're applying to an internship, which is an entry-level position. And I want to put it to you this way. You can't have an internship experience before you have internship experience. Everybody went from not knowing and not having experience, and then someone giving them their first internship experience. So how did all these people get their first internship? How did they get skills and knowledge before they got skills and knowledge? It didn't happen that way. Someone had to go, I think you have enough fundamental knowledge that if you use critical thinking skills and problem solving skills from the foundations that you understand, if I give you a project, that you'll know how to figure it out from what you understand well. So don't decide that what is not good enough. Just put in what you did and let the employer decide. Do I need to add my experience about associations? I think I already answered that. Is it too late if I apply for a summer internship next semester because I don't have confidence to get a job now? you can wait, but I will tell you the recruiting window is now. It's not about what you're remember, don't self-decide whether you're good enough or not. Let the employer look at what you have to offer and decide. Again, you're applying to an internship. You're not applying to a full-time job where you're expected to already know what you're doing. So like, I think I'll put it to you this way, right? So in my first job, I was still in school, meaning I didn't even finish my master's program, and I got a full-time job there. I learned how to do my job, 95% of it, while doing it. And the reason I got hired is because they knew confidently that I would be able to do that. That's the point. That even if I didn't know something, I would figure it out. We hire people like that. If they needed someone who had everything on the job description that I applied to, they would have to pay 3 times the amount that they paid me because it was an entry-level position. So if someone had all these amazing, great things, then I would fill that with a full-time person with multiple years of experience. You're applying to an internship, which training is required, right? So if the employer is not giving you training, it's not an internship, it's just a job. So again, don't overly worry. You're all in the same boat. We have master students and freshman students and sophomore students that are newer, but we're filling those summer internships now. And the offers will be given in the next 3 months. So you can wait, but your chances to multiple positions will close as the longer you wait, right? By December, 70% potentially of all offers is given by then. So not to say that you don't have any chance in spring, it just means you just self-decided to eliminate yourself from 70% of the availability you would have had if you had started now. And again, as you get more, add more to your resume as you apply, but that shouldn't stop you from applying now. Again, there are plenty of students who get recruited now in their first or second semester, and then they know that you're going to spend the next year in class learning projects before you actually start working for them. Like, they get that and they understand that. I think that's the last question that's on here. If there's no other questions, give them a few moments, see if there's any other questions. All right then. Well, if there's no more questions, please feel free to reach out. You can email me. You can email the main career center. You can come to our drop-in hours. You can come to make an appointment. Oh wait, I think I just got another one. How do I change my resume to the specific job if I'm applying through the job fair this September, where employers are hiring internships but not specific job description? Great question. Have multiple resumes. So again, this goes back to, if you have multiple areas of interest, make a software general resume for yourself, and then make one for data analyst position, one for machine learning, whatever your areas of interest are. When you're standing in that line and about to talk to the employer, and you should probably know which employer gets which resume depending on which position that they have to offer. And so if you have multiple resumes that are job type resumes, right, they're heavily focused in certain areas, your resumes will have some replication, but it will focus higher in certain sections on these job type resumes. And so if you're talking to a recruiter and they're like, oh yeah, we're looking for X, then you just pull that resume and say, oh great, here's my resume for that. Just make sure you make a note of how to separate them so that you don't give the wrong resume. 2-column resumes, do you think they're a good idea? I don't. And it's because of space. It eats up way more space than necessary. And so I would not. I know everybody wants to do something different and fancy, but what's different and fancy to me, honestly, is that you tailor the position to me. That's literally the most important thing to me, is if I get to look at your resume and immediately see what I'm looking for, because I'm looking for a specific skill or a specific experience or specific knowledge. And if I see it right away, then I'm going to continue reading and be happy and want to interview you. So try to, and you'll hear from recruiters because they'll tell you, and here's the problem, it's the way you have to ask a recruiter, right? If they say, do you like it when something's fancier? They'll say yes. But if you ask them a very different question, like, would this impact your willingness to hire me because of this? I don't think they would say yes, right? They're hiring you because of your qualification, not because your resume was fancier than another. It might stick out and it might attract them a little bit more, but if you don't have the qualifications, you don't have the qualifications. Or if you do have the qualifications, it really doesn't matter. You could be a terrible resume, but I see on here you have 3 years of X, Y, or Z, and even if you have a terrible resume, I'll still interview you. Because again, the relevant experience is the most important aspect. I think that's it for questions. All right, well, I'm going to end the session. So again, please let us know how we can assist you, and we look forward to seeing you the remaining parts of the semester.